Thanks, Jason. Thank you. Why are you here? I'm here because a Polish boy in Winnipeg, Canada, fell in love with a French girl from Algiers, Algeria. I'd love to tell you the whole enchanting story that is my parents, but it would involve an adoption, a war, the American Navy, Life magazine, a famous French artist, and a fair amount of Polish vodka. Ed and Michelle, my parents, had 4 children. And that's me, number 3. And for as long as I can remember, I always ask the question, why am I here? I also ask the question, how was I here? You know, the birds and bees question. My mom sat me down in her bedroom and she said, it's kind of like the mailman who puts a letter in the mailbox and about 9 months later, a nice little package arrives. Made sense to me at the time, but I always thought the mailman was my father. It was kind of strange. But back to the question, why am I here? I knew from a very early age that I wanted to serve. In fact, my earliest recollection of what I wanted to be when I grow up was a nun. I thought nuns could have all the children in the world. All the children belonged to the nuns. I thought I could serve the poor, heal the sick, feed the hungry, and wear the same outfit every day and never have to wash my hair. And that was cool. I was a plucky little tomboy second grader. I'm not quite sure when I fell in love with the city. It could have been in my early years in the historic port city of Norfolk, Virginia. Maybe charming Charleston, South Carolina, gracious and genteel and with cobblestone streets and beautiful buildings. Or maybe even San Diego, California, where I lived with my family and my grandparents while my dad was in the Vietnam War. I remember going to my grandparents' house, and they lived in this little house in La Jolla, and I remember sitting on the stone wall eating fresh figs and fresh pears. I remember my grandmother Juliette had this little cart that she pulled behind her when she would go to the market. And I was intrigued by that way of living, that city life. And I remember when we would go downtown, it was an event. Our mother would scrub our faces, tie back our hair, and make us put on those dresses that she made by hand. And they were always itchy. And we didn't care because we were going to the big city. The big city's so diverse, so beautiful, so unpredictable. My dad was in the Navy, and that meant that we moved about every 2 years from base to base and place to place. And so began my curiosity with city and place. By about the 6th grade, I knew that I would be a problematic nun. I had discovered other things. And so I turned my attention to other things that I might want to do in my life. I loved dentistry. I wanted to restore smiles to children on the continent of Africa, where my mother was from. I loved languages, my parents both being bilingual, and I thought that maybe I could help cultures communicate and maybe foster peace through language. I was always enterprising, and I wanted to have a social enterprise where maybe I could restore hope to people who had disease. And I dabbled in those things, all those things, on a journey that took me from the classroom to the United Nations to QVC. And of all the things I did and dabbled in, I settled into being a quasi-governmental downtown manager whose job it is to transform cities into healthy, vibrant places. And I simply and utterly fell in love with people and place, and placemaking. Like this. This is Sky Point in downtown Billings, and it was a beautiful public art piece. It's also a piece that defines the exact center of our city. and was built to be a gathering place. It transformed the Four Corners there. There really was no business going on during that time. The community didn't really gather at those Four Corners, but we built it, and they came, and they still come for things like this, for festivals and feasts, for concerts, for parades. And I fell in love with introducing the unexpected in our downtown and making place for children, healthy activities where children could come and recreate and feel safe. And I realized that we could use place to introduce diversity and embrace diversity in our community and introduce people to something they might not see in Billings, Montana. I fell in love with business in place and championing our neighbors when they open a business and they get that key and they turn the lock to that door, and we're supporting local economy through place. I also was intrigued by vacant parking lots and what we could do with it. Could we introduce something wondrous in that lot? Could we have people through place hear something beautiful, make something wonderful together as a community, and just create unique experiences for people to be together and have community with their best friend or their neighbor. And always being mindful to, well, just expect the unexpected in downtown Billings, because why not? Free hugs. And being mindful to elevate the arts and culture, and always introduce something beautiful in the public realm. Like this. On 29th Street, there is an alley that we're trying to do an alleyscape with. And it really is just about getting a community to come together, a business owner that wants to do something with an alley, a property owner that says, okay, two artists from our community who are amazing, and a bucket of paint. As my sister would say, just slap some paint on that thing. And you can make something beautiful, whether someone sleeps in that alley or uses that alley as a corridor to get to work. And I realized through this thing we call placemaking that we could restore buildings, preserve history, stimulate the local economy, support our neighbors, champion the arts, and ultimately connect people to, no matter where on the economic spectrum, to opportunities to have and be in a place. This past year, I was very fortunate to facilitate a summit with the City of Billings, a summit called the Community Innovation Summit that was exploring options and solutions to delivering care and service to some of our most vulnerable populations, actually a transient and homeless population in our city. And I was so proud of my community for having frank and compassionate conversations about the issues. I also heard among the conversations, this is my place, don't be in my space. I heard, we belong here, you belong over there, and I had heard vibrations of, if you build something beautiful, they'll want to be there. Did you ever think to ask a tree if you could sit under it? Did you ever think to ask permission of the stars to gaze up at them? Did you ever think you should? What if nature was conditional? Would you be worthy? And it struck a chord in me and really deepened my resolve to serve all in building community. You see, I was that girl. I was that girl in the grocery store that you look at with the food vouchers. I was on LEAP, Low Income Energy Assistance Program, to heat my home. My beautiful children were on Medicaid. I accepted food from a box, meat in a can, peanut butter that you had to open with a can opener. I couldn't even be a choosy mom. And my spouse's job loss, a death in the family, a move across country, a failed marriage, a divorce, foreclosure, repossession. All those things happened in a short amount of time in my life and really brought me to a point of being at risk. And that mourning and that suffering in that short amount of time changed me on many levels. It made me wiser, it made me more universal in my thinking, and it made me pray hard that I would use that suffering to ease suffering. Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, says, in some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment that it finds meaning. I decided that I would use that experience in building a vibrant urban core to prioritize a demographic of people that some would soon forget or abandon. What if we prioritized the most vulnerable first? What would our community look like? Would it change the way that we love one another? Would it change the way that we built community together? You see, you're a citizen of the city, un citoyen de la cité. And that is a powerful, beautiful thing. And without even knowing it, you build community. This community is a reflection of who we are as a people. And in the downtown, that center where we celebrate, where we parade, where we protest, where we work, where we recreate, where we innovate, where we congregate, is the lifeblood and guts of your community. It asks questions, it demands answers, and at times it's unforgiving, as it has been in the last 2 weeks, with a vulnerable population against a very bitter cold. And it should always be welcoming, no matter where you are on your walk. This year, on New Year's Eve, we had a celebration under Sky Point, and something amazing happened. It was really cold, and not a lot of people came out early, but at 11:45, 11:50, buildings downtown started emptying out. Restaurants started emptying out. Bars, taverns, residences started emptying out into the street. And it was amazing. All these people came together, and I was out there in the crowd, my little beanie on, and I looked over under Sky Point, and some of our transient friends were standing on some of the decorative big boulders that we have around Sky Point. And our transient friends were watching the crowd. And the music was pumping, and people were happy. They were with their family, they were with their friends. And I looked up again, and our transient friends had become part of the crowd. They got off that rock and got into the crowd. And the clock struck midnight, the confetti, everything was happening. And I looked out in the crowd again, and I locked eyes with one of my transient friends. And we smiled in the same language. He smiled because he was there having community with his fellow citizens, and he had a place. And it was a beautiful thing at the strike of midnight in the exact center of our city, under that great big defining elephant we call Sky Point. And I was so proud. I was so proud of my city, your city, our city. Transforming and creating space that speaks the language of a gracious, healthy, vibrant, inviting, accepting, unexpected place is what I'm blessed to do with a lot of help from a lot of people. I'm Lisa Kopansky Harmon, and I build community. This is why I'm here. Why are you here? Thank you.